Okay, so I haven't been very talkative for a while. I don't know, I've been doing other shit. Going crazy, painting vans, working on revolvers. I don't know. I do this. It's my process. I would say there was something in the universe that caused a great stir in the heavens somewhere around July 6th to July 8th. Something like that. It disturbed me greatly. I'm not sure exactly what was going on. I think it's interesting that a lot of other shit happened right around then too. They turned CERN back on, and things got weird for me. I don't know exactly why, but I figured this was good enough news to do uh, a video. And this video is about William Shatner was at fucking San Diego Comic Con, I think, and said basically that the current Star Trek that is being made would have Gene Roddenberry rolling in his grave. And oh, Captain, my Captain. Fuck yes. And he said the same thing about Star Wars and many other things. Fuck yes. There's something wrong. And it's not like, oh, they aren't hiring good writers. It's there's something very, very wrong at a very high level in Hollywood right now, and I don't know what it is. And William Shatner sees it. Seems like we're being run by some sort of fucking cult. I don't really know why. It's not for me to question why. It's just for me to point out that we're being run by some sort of freakish cult. And like apparently they think transgender people are cool for whatever reason. I don't know what that's about. Okay? Like I was talking to somebody just today and it's like I don't understand why both of the representatives that we sent to some European council both happen to be some sort of trans non-binary whatever the fuck it is. I think that's just because the only white men that are left in fucking government have chosen to put on a dress rather than get fucking ran out as Nazis. That's my real thoughts. That's, with a lot of things. Like, you could accuse me of that, but, like, in reality, I've always dealt with these issues, and I just started dealing with them in the open and in the public because I don't know, y'all kept talking about it so much, and I couldn't shut the fuck up about it. And some of the things that I have to say about transgenderism in America, you should fucking know that I'm a transgender woman. Like, it's hard to have those conversations without that. Well, at the same time, I agree with William Shatner. Like, Gene Roddenberry and many other people from the past would be rolling in their fucking graves right now about a great many things. Star Trek is the least of it. Like, I could bitch about the goddamn government until the fucking cows come home. I've done it before. I don't care. It doesn't matter anymore to me. They've made themselves illegitimate to the point that I don't care what the government says. I don't care what the government says about the barrel length of an AR-15. I don't care about what the government says about cars. I don't care about what the government says about driving cars. I don't care about what the government says about machine guns. I don't care about what the government says about taxes. I don't care about. You get it? Do you get it yet? That's where I'm at. I'm flying a black flag. I think it's about time all you motherfuckers join me. I'm not paying a fucking single tax, and I'm not working a single goddamn hour until the issue is solved. And I'm not the only one, obviously. There's a great many of us doing this. It's like the unspoken thing of the working man right now. There's a whole bunch of people that are going, well, if we're going to all be lazy, then we'll all be lazy. I know because I essentially stopped doing shit a while back, and I've been getting shit from it for several from several people. But in reality, like I'm winding my life down to live out of a van and move from campsite to campsite every 2 weeks in Arizona. I don't know how much that costs, but not very fucking much. That is to the level that they have pissed me off. Why aren't you that pissed? Excuse me. There's a car alarm going off and it's 3:30 in the morning. Okay. I'm not going to stop the show. Welcome to fucking Rachel's place. In case you ever wondered, like, whether I was fucking armed doing the show or not. Anyway, everything in fucking life right now is 1,000 different versions of bullshit. By the way, the car alarm stopped pretty much as soon as I stepped outside, so I'm not going to go wandering out in the dark listening for a car alarm that's not there. My car doesn't make an alarm, but that's close enough. It's got to be one of my neighbors. So we'll see if their car got stolen tomorrow or not. My car is currently incapable of being stolen. Yeah, that's one of those. I I was worried about my old FJ getting stolen. It was a nice car. It's worth a lot of money in Mexico. When I sold that car, I was looking at my options for cars, and I bought a $2,000 beat up piece of shit Honda Odyssey that someone had just ran through all their fucking insurance trying to keep it on the road over the last 5 years and basically replaced the entire drivetrain of the car. And then they hit a curb and fucked up their front bumper. So they traded it in on a new one because that bumper totaled the car because they spent so much money replacing all the rest of that junk. So I've got an essentially new 2004 Honda Odyssey, at least new where it counts. And right now she doesn't move. She doesn't move because her tire's flat and she doesn't have a catalytic converter. So, and I don't see the reason to go inflate the tire at the moment because my air compressor is not available. It's in storage. Long story on that. Anywho, so that's a work in progress at the moment. Uh, the catalytic converter and tire are going to get fixed pretty rapidly. Up till now, I haven't really had to be driving that much, and I've been around the house and doing things, and I think I've taken Lyft twice. And like that's the first time I've ever had to use a fucking cab service. Isn't it interesting? I take that back. That's the first time inside the US, really, other than one time in Springfield. That was a yellow cab. I don't use cabs very much, but when I do, uh, is usually interesting for the reasons why. Um, William Shatner. That's what we were talking about before someone started breaking into cars. William Shatner, it means a lot to me because he was Captain Kirk. And if you were ever a fan of Star Trek, and Captain Kirk doesn't mean a lot to you, then fuck you. And same thing with all the rest of them. Like, I am a good person today because of Star Trek. And I know a lot of you would be like, you're a good person. Oh, yeah, believe it or not, I cuss a lot and I'll shoot you fucking dead where you stand if you fuck with me. But usually the reasons why I shoot people dead where they stand are for pretty good reasons, and that's why I'm not in prison. As a result of being that kind of a person and growing up with Star Trek as this lesson in how to be a man, really. Like, I'm crying talking about fucking Captain Kirk. That show is depicting him as a ship's captain. This came to mean a lot to me when I got to know my grandfather and what he did. My grandfather was a captain of Marines, and there's many things that none of us will ever be. But somehow, through learning about everything from leading groups of men to being a ship's captain to learning how to fucking work on 1911s, every time I do something like that, I capture a little bit of what that man had. And I got a pretty decent chunk of it from fucking Star Trek, of all places. And this is why it matters what they're doing to our myths. It it just fucking does. They are destroying our culture in ways that you can't even imagine and don't care about because you think culture doesn't matter. Most people don't know. I went to school for anthropology, and in the U.S., when you go to school for archaeology, you have to go to school for anthropology because there is no archaeology in American science. Archaeology is a subset of anthropology, and mostly anthropologists are a bunch of hippy dippy weirdos, but I kind of like them. They're weird, artsy people. They're people that I can sort of fit in with in ways that you wouldn't expect. I have to hide a good portion of myself usually around those people, and I have to kind of play nice. Believe it or not, I can do that. I did it for many years, and man, learning that shit, it's really hard. One second. It's really hard to ever look at the world in any other way. And basically, cultural anthropology teaches you to be a trained observer. I don't usually interact in most of the things that I watch. Some things I do. I break rules because I do that. This is why I'm not an anthropologist. I like I I took what cultural anthropology had to offer. I took what psychology had to offer, and I fused them with like How to Make Friends and Enemies, whatever that book is called by Carnegie. And you know, basically you could drop me into almost any social situation, and in a couple of days, it's not that I'll be running the place. It's there won't be anything there that happens that I don't know. I'm really good at this. I'm disturbingly good at this. This is what made me lots of money over the years. People tell me shit. People open up to me. People talk to me. I hear things because people don't know that I'm there. I was a corporate spy. I worked for a couple of different companies. I did a couple of things like that, and I made some money doing that, and it was really fun. And ultimately, I stopped doing that one of the times that I got shot. So that's a story for another day. But anyway, um, doing all of that shit is a part of the same thing as Star Trek. And it's a part of the same thing because like what you dream about and what you think about as a kid affects a lot of shit about you. You know, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that's bullshit," whatever. Like, it depends on who you are. If you're sort of person that goes for your dreams, it affects it a lot. If you're the sort of person that I always will work at Wendy's, well, then no, that's not going to help you. Okay, and this is the thing: is the thing that drives men to do great and terrible things is the thing that makes you not work at fucking Wendy's or wherever. Insert place here. It doesn't matter. I don't work at those places not because they're beneath me, but because I have enough money to not need to work there. If that makes any sense. I have a place to sleep. I have food. I have everything I could want. Like the thing that I go for in life is toys mainly at this point. Like I could not lift a fucking pinky for the next 10 years probably and be just fine. And like a lot of people wouldn't believe that, but I say not lift a pinky. That's exaggerating. Okay. I would have to do some little tiny bit of work. But this is the thing is I don't do that by making a shit ton of money. I do that by making zero money for a long time usually and making these spurts of big money when I hit a project or something or when I hit a lick. So like when I sold my car, I made $28,000. I don't have a single dime of that money. I spent it all. Why would you hang on to cash right now? What did I spend my money on? That's a good question. It's a way better question, isn't it? And like this is how you live cheap. I spent most of that money on food and supplies and pieces of equipment that I would need in the coming future. So I didn't buy a big fancy car. I bought that minivan. I spent another probably easily 3 or 4 grand on shit to go in and on that minivan that has not gone into or on that minivan yet. There's a 200-watt solar system and a fridge and shit. Like there's a lot of stuff that's going to go into that minivan. Other shit I spent money on, like I said, was canned goods and Mountain House. Bought a lot of that shit, and the main reason I bought a lot of that shit is because I kind of think bird in the hand better than two in the bush kind of thing. And with the minivan camper setup that I'm still building, I'm kind of doing it as the tools and supplies become cheaply available to do it, and as I have need. At the moment, I don't really need to go anywhere. But that's going to be rapidly changing. And I'm trying to figure out a job that I could do right now that's off the radar that I could make some cash in. That I'm basically going to hoard cash to buy land and build cabins. that kind of thing. I have a buddy that's wanting to do the same thing, and we're still talking about that. It it is a further off dream than it was when we initially started talking about it. The When we first started talking about it, I had just sold the car and had $28,000. Was like, dude, we should just go buy land and figure out the rest. And it took him about 6 to 8 months to come around to that idea. And by that time, I had already bought my plan, which is a shitload of food and a mobile command center, basically, and a job selling weed, probably. And that's, there are worse things to do. But the job selling weed hopefully will fund land. And once we have land, then everything will get easier. And like, that's the thing a lot of people don't get is I know how to think like people did in the 1700s. And that's a rare and valuable thing now. And my buddy, he thinks almost exactly like me, but slightly different. And we improve each other's ideas a great deal. And like, this is the thing, when you get a couple of men together that think like this, that want to build worlds, it starts happening. Okay, I'm already building shit here that I'm going to use in whatever, you know, is to come. That's the thing with the van I'm building. The paint job is kind of silly. You don't really need that, but it's cool. It makes it cooler to me, and it makes it a piece of art, and it makes it mine. As far as other things that are going to go in there, I already have a mattress that's going to go in there. It's a full size mattress from Sealy, I think it is. I bought it at Costco. It's whichever one they sell at Costco. It has, you know, a couple DVD players that are going to go into it initially. I'm kind of thinking now more about buying a cheap TV and an Xbox and putting it fucking in there because, like, why not? I've got the power to do it basically, and I've decided I'm going to buy a second solar battery. That I'm going to buy a cheaper one. It's half the price of the one I already have, and I'm going to have the one that I have already dedicated to the fridge and the kitchen in the back of the van, and then I'm going to put the smaller one up front for like a mobile office and build in a place for a laptop and shit. And I did have a laptop to put in the car. Um, I still do have a laptop to put in the car, but now it's my old MacBook, which I'm guessing the audio is probably better on. And I'm thinking seriously now about taking this MacBook someplace and having it like restored and upgraded because it's a MacBook Pro from 2013 that has a real hard drive in it, and I love everything about it, but it needs a new screen, and it needs, maybe a new memory card, that kind of shit. I don't think it really needs anything. Like, this is my thing, is like, the main thing that I use a laptop for is to watch YouTube on while I'm traveling. And like, that's where this thing could really use some help, is screen upgrade, speaker upgrade, that kind of shit. As far as everything else, like, this is about the only thing I do on this laptop other than write. So I need a typewriter that can do this, and it already does that. And I think the audio and shit on this MacBook sounds better. I always thought that. Um, you have to tell me if you think so too, compared to a couple weeks ago. Basically, ever since you've been seeing the green screen, that was the new MacBook. I went a little crazy, and it's best not to ask what happened to my PC. Let's let's say that I fucking hate Microsoft. I hate them with a passion. and now it's dead. Dead and buried. I destroyed that fucker. I hated that computer. It felt so good to do that. I took an $800 laptop and I don't know, it might be worth about 20 bucks in scrap gold now. And like this is the thing is I I didn't do that because I had to. I did that because I fucking wanted to. And it felt good. And like that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand about a lot of shit is some people would buy an $800 laptop and shoot it and post that shit on fucking Instagram and fucking YouTube and whatever. I do it for the joy. And like really the thing that pissed me off about that thing was a variety of basically how the entire operating system worked. The fact that it didn't have a hard drive, the fact that it didn't have a disk drive, the fact that it was completely reliant upon being on Wi-Fi the entire goddamn time. And like this is the thing where like my MacBook Pro from 2013 that I paid $250 for on Amazon because it has a Spanish language keyboard. This thing will continue to do the things that I need it to do until the fucking cows come home. I think right now I could take this to a place here in town and get it, refurbed or whatever for probably a couple $100, and it'll be a better laptop than that piece of shit fucking PC that is now buried in my backyard next to the fucking cat. Anyway, I I hate that computer. In addition to fucking William Shatner, I I always really liked Picard, and it disturbs me to know the Picard series is probably just as much shit as any of the rest of that new crap. I really thoroughly enjoyed the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie because it was like this breath of fresh air and it did capture a lot of the stuff that I liked about Star Trek. And it was kind of a new start. He was young Kirk, he's figuring stuff out. I like all that. Second movie was a huge misstep, just my opinion. We talk about the what fors or whys of that, but basically, if you're going to have Khan in the movie, you should just have Khan in the movie. I can't even watch that shit. And like maybe I should rewatch it now, fresh eyes, because like I was pissed that they flat out lied in the marketing of the movie, saying that oh no, Khan's not the villain. And I knew Khan was the villain of that movie when I heard how many torpedoes there were. That's the level to which I like Star Trek. The number of torpedoes that they said in that movie was the number of fucking tubes from Space Seed that Khan's original crew were in. And it's a very unique number. If you know that number, leave it in the comments. It's I thought it was funny. Like it was oh well that's Khan. Like it was within the first 5 minutes of the goddamn movie. The third movie, I really don't have any issues with particularly, but it was kind of a nothing. It didn't have any stakes. It didn't involve anyone we knew. It was a good new adventure, and if you follow that up with like, I I would go with something in the vein of The Search for Spock. And I know that's not a lot of people's favorite movie, but you need something like that. Something where it's like one lone submarine commander doing something for the Klingon Empire against Kirk. That's what I would have done for my next movie. And then after that, I think some sort of thing with Khan at that point would be where I would go. And it would have been a Wrath of Khan remake. completely changed up because of the events happening in a different timeline and all that. And I think that's cool. And some of the shit that they did with that, okay. But some of the shit they did with that, I'm just like, this isn't Star Trek. And it's been since then that it's not been Star Trek. Like this, it started J.J. Abrams, really. I hate to say it, but really, Star Wars started not being Star Wars when J.J. Abrams got involved. And I think he's really the dark horse in a lot of this that we don't see. Ryan Johnson is an ass and ruined Star Wars, but he did it after J.J. Abrams muddied the waters. And this is the thing with J.J. Abrams is he thinks he's Spielberg, but he's not. And I wish that Spielberg and George Lucas would sit J.J. Abrams down and have this conversation that is basically what they obviously know about storytelling, he does not grasp. And that's that some themes are timeless, some stories are timeless, and it's okay to work those into your movie in a new way. And like, I'm not saying to copy shit or whatever, but I mean like Jaws. There are things in Jaws that are references to sorry, I can't talk. That are references to Moby Dick, that are references to a great many things. Like the Moby Dick one is the easy fucking one. There's 100 things in that movie that are like it's a very referential movie in terms of literature and film. And this is what is missing in today's shit, in my opinion, is whatever they're choosing to reference, not everyone has seen. I think. Or they don't get that you should do this because they don't know how to write, because the people that taught these people how to write were a college professor who got to be a college professor of writing by failing at it and being a horrible writer. And like that's what we produce is this generation of schlock. High budget schlock. If you want to fix Star Wars, it doesn't matter if the hero has a dick or a vagina. It matters if the hero has a journey and learns shit and does things. And like Rey in the new Star Wars movies, it's not that she's a bad character. It's that she shows up being the Wonderkin at the start and is perfect pretty much throughout the whole thing. And if anything, I think is better before the series than she is after. And that's okay, but that's not Star Wars. Okay? Star Wars is based on an ancient storytelling tradition that goes all the way back to the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid. It is a culture myth of our time, and it is written to tell young men and women who they are and where they stand in the universe, basically. It's made to make every fucking young boy want to be Luke and Han, and every fucking girl want to be Leia. What about these new movies is that? Oh, yeah, nothing. Like this is my point about all of this stuff is they wonder why they have no soul. I'm going to quote John Milius, the maker of Red Dawn, when he and Martin Scorsese met. They were sitting in an auditorium watching a student film about something. I don't remember what it was offhand. But from the back of the room, Martin Scorsese hears, "This film doesn't have enough moxie." And that was John Milius. That's how I feel about every one of these piece of shit sci-fi schlocks that they've made in the last decade. Like, even the Alien movies, they have, like, totally ruined, really. Like, the last couple I actually like, okay? But they aren't as good as they could have been. I really did like the last one. I liked Prometheus too, and I'm a rare bird on that one, I think. And that's the thing is Prometheus got some of this right. It got other shit wrong. There's we could talk about Prometheus. That's not the point of this show. The point of this show is what does Prometheus get right that Star Wars and Star Trek don't? It's this magic. It's the soul of realism that you give a creation when you breathe life into it in this way by making it referential, by making it more than just one story. Any story that I ever would tell in a movie would not simply be one story. So, for example, in Star Wars, there is the greater story of good against evil. There's also the very personal story of a father and a son having an interpersonal issue. There's, you know, a kid losing his mentor. There's a thousand things we could point out. But those big overarching ones, the one of the father and the son, the one of good and evil, that's like the soul of that movie. And these new movies don't have that. Like there was barely good and evil in that movie. It was kind of a well, this is the new empire, and everyone who's in that new empire thinks that they should be the empire, and everyone in the rebellion thinks, I don't know, we like being space pirates. I don't understand these movies. Also, what in the fuck is up with us having to have a Death Star? The new Force Awakens movie, um, it's not a Death Star. It's it's a Death Planet, and that's retarded. Like, I could go on that movie for years. I'm gonna have to make this like just a weekly bitch, where like I take an hour of my day, some ungodly early morning, and get high as fuck, and start off at Hollywood sucks, and just see where we end up. Because this is what I really hate most about the world right now is that basically even when I do enjoy a show, like let's say Loki, I enjoyed Loki. I have basically zero faith that Loki season 2 will even be watchable. And I think the reason for this is basically they don't have any fucking clue how the first one was made well because that person got paid and left because that's what you do. When these assholes fucking pay you, you leave. I think what we're watching is the death of Hollywood. I think there will be a new Hollywood reborn, and it's going to be in various places. I think you're going to start seeing production companies happen in places like Georgia and Oklahoma and Texas, and that's already happening. Has been for a while. It's going to get bigger. And the reason why they're coming here is because there aren't so many fucking laws, and we have kind of varied terrain, and you can shoot most days of the year here. It's not a miracle mystery as to why you're coming to Oklahoma. We're actually a pretty good place to shoot, except for the fact that we occasionally might have a thunderstorm that will like look like the wrath of God. But honestly, it would be really cool to shoot a movie in Oklahoma planning around shooting in thunderstorms. You'd have to like film this movie over a decade or something, and just every time you're in Oklahoma or during the summer, like take peak tornado time here or whatever, and just come here and find like the biggest fucking thunderstorms and go film in them. When I say film in them, I mean like the movie that I would do would probably be like Pecos Bill or some shit like that, like where he fucking roped a tornado and rode it. Like it's an old cowboy legend. I would do that movie and I would shoot all of the scenes with him doing his tornado shit actually in the fucking storm. And then you figure out how to green screen in or whatever the shit you need. And like the thing is, you wouldn't even have to do that for a decade. Like you might even just be able to do that in a couple of summers. But my thing is, I think to really get all of the shots that you would need and consistently and whatever, like you're gonna need time because it's weather. But it would be really cool to do something like that. But I think we're gonna start seeing these big studios start failing because they keep putting out a bunch of money on the gamble that they make it back, and they stopped making it back. For those, whoa, for those not in the know, during COVID, that hurt them a lot. They had several movies that were multi-million dollar, hundreds of millions of dollars invested into making those movies that were supposed to make billions to pay for that, and they didn't. And I think this is half of what hurt the industry is there's a fallout from that. And some of the fallout from that was a whole bunch of creatives at all of these things just said, fuck it. I got enough money. I'm going to go, you know, worry about something else for a while. Maybe we'll come back and make movies in a couple of years. And or I'm going to just go make my own shit. There's a bunch of people doing that right now. And this is the thing, when you've paid actors the amount that they've paid actors for these years is fuck. Matthew McConaughey could have his own production studio in a heartbeat in Texas. There's several people like that. And those people could corral enough people to make a good enough competition to Hollywood that they would always be in competition with them for movies. And like people don't get that the movie game, it's a every weekend box office fight. You're fighting to get, you know, a slice of constant money. And that's been the thing for years, and it's been getting smaller. And I think COVID has just rung the fucking death knell of that shit. It's like I don't even go to the theater anymore, and I don't even know anyone that does. That's sad. I miss movie theaters. Of course, I also miss being able to fucking carry a gun in there and smoke in there and shit. So I don't miss them that much. My girlfriend and I went to see Shang Chi, with Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, or whatever the fuck it was. I think that was one of the last things I saw in theaters. Top Gun I saw in theaters. So, and I used to go to the theater every weekend. And I did that when I worked at one and when I had A List or Movie Pass before A List. But AMC A List is a good deal. I think it's like $22, and you can see like a dozen movies a month. If you're wanting to go see movies, that's what I would do. But at this point, I don't really see a reason. I don't. I don't think that there's anything coming out that I can't wait for it to come to streaming. And I think that's everyone now. Maybe not everyone, but it's quite a bit of people. I'm done kind of talking about Hollywood bullshit. I want to finish this up talking about black powder revolvers. I've been working on this Colt single action. I don't know what to call it. It's They call it an 1851 Navy N44. That's not a real thing. This is an 1860 Army that's like made to look like an 1851 Navy, and it has a Navy grip on it. I found out that I can convert this thing to 45 ACP. And, well, now we have to do that. I'm going to get a cursed converter, and I'm going to roll my own black powder 45 ACP cartridges. And the reason I'm doing that is my 1911 is a constant supply of fucking 45 ACP brass. And I don't know if case capacity is a big enough issue to go 45 Colt over 45 ACP. And I know there's at least a couple of people who watch this that like black powder stuff. So if you've made it this far into this, would you go 45 Colt or 45 ACP? And my reasoning for the 45 ACP is free brass. My reasoning for the 45 Colt is I could probably buy off the shelf cowboy loads and shoot this thing. I know I could. And that would be nice. But at the same time, I would still be hand loading. And the 45 Colt, man, you have a lot more case capacity. And I'm wanting to actually use this gun, and I'm wanting it to be somewhat hot. And that means a big lead bullet and as much powder as I can cram into whatever case that I'm going to be using. So I think the 45 Colt really does have advantages, especially just being able to go buy a box of practice ammo. But I also want to have this gun be kind of where you're loading your own fucking ammo. Like more than a black powder, less than a cartridge revolver. So like the reason I want it that way is that way it's not dependent on buying cartridges from a store. You know, it may be dependent on powder and bullets and all that shit, but I'm hoping to be able to mold my own bullets. I'm gonna buy the mold and shit to do that. And I've looked into making my own powder too, and as it turns out, that's really not that hard. So the only thing you need at that point would be primers and percussion caps. That's kind of the same as. I don't know. I wanted this gun to be a gun for lack of resupply, basically. Because I'm always going to want something to have on my hip that shoots bullets. And this black powder gun does that. And especially with the loads that I'm wanting to do where I'm getting a pretty damn heavy bullet and cramming as much powder as the case will hold, this thing is going to fucking have some thump to it. That's the kind of load that used to kill horses back in the Civil War. Pretty sure it's going to be effective. I love the sights I put on this thing. I put a XS shotgun bead on the front sight and carved the rear sight into kind of a bigger square notch than what it had before. It had kind of a little V, and I made it into a shallower V that this big ass globe just sits in. It's not the most precise sight in the world, but this is a gun for shooting at moving people. Like that's the thing I think a lot of people don't get about guns in general, and particularly the guns that I modify. Is I'm modifying a gun to do a certain thing. And I don't pick and choose what I'm doing to it based on fashion usually. Occasionally, yes. If there's multiple ways to do something and one is cooler than the others, I'm gonna do the cool one. But usually I do the cheap one, the cheap effective one. That's what I tend to go for on this kind of shit. And converting this thing to cartridges is not the cheap and effective route. I'll give you that. However, having both of my guns fire 45 ACP, I think, is really fucking funny. Even though one's 45 ACP black powder hand loads, like, kind of epic. And that's my goal for this gun. It's going to be, the second gun in my set of guns. So it may not ever even get carried much or whatever, other than maybe shooting at the range for fun and fucking going out in the backcountry. But I want an old school revolver for that. Oh, that and I kind of figure with me being me, the chances of me only having a black powder revolver pretty slim. I think it is going to be really cool to be able to make my own black powder hand loads for this gun, though. I'm hoping that my Dremel skills are up to the grinding that has to be done on this thing. It it looks like quite a bit of material gets removed to be able to put a shell in and out the back of the cylinder on that curse converter. I'm not too excited about that. Like, I'm pretty good with the Dremel tool. I really don't want to fuck this gun up. And I really don't want to have to fucking Dremel for that long. Like, that's a lot of Dremeling. That's one of those things that, like, if you ever wanted to master a skill in gunsmithing, the thing that I would have you do is I would have you grind a knife and cut that knife out and do everything that you were going to do to make a knife with a fucking Dremel tool. It will definitely sharpen your skills with that thing. And it's like a free canvas to just fuck up on. And the thing that knife making teaches you is don't go hog wild so you don't make big fuck ups that are hard to fix. If you go a little slow, you make smaller fuck ups, you can even those out as you go. That's with everything in life. Go a little slower, think a little more, and try to always work in something that it doesn't matter if you mess up a little bit. That's kind of how I like to be on everything related to survival, preparedness, knife making, whatever. Is like my van's paint job. I think it looks better than most cars' factory paint jobs. It's a bunch of stripes of fucking spray paint. If someone graffitied that car up to high heaven tomorrow, I would probably go buy another can of black spray paint and cover as much of the graffiti as I could in black, and then buy cans of green again and a can of brown and do the same stripe pattern over the thing. And you'd hardly even notice it. This is why the spray paint car finish. This is why my black powder revolver has a very shittily applied cold blue finish. I I think it looks old and cool, and at the same time, it costs $0. It could get rusted all to fuck, and I could scrub it off and put it back on in an afternoon for $0. Like, I like to be able to fix shit. I don't like buying shit that you can't fix. And I'm kind of fed the fuck up with buying shit from people that are of the opposite opinion. Everything they fucking make is made to be thrown away because they don't make things. They sell things and they want you to buy them. And I'm not selling you anything here. I occasionally will do something like I'm trying to make some poker chips right now as like a fundraiser kind of swag item. Might do that, but and like there's Patreon, but I'm not sitting here trying to sell you on you should buy X gun. I think that's kind of uninteresting to be honest. This whole channel is about whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's guns or knives or vans or whatever, go at it from the aspect of mastering it. And you master something by knowing every aspect of it. When it comes to a gun, the only way to do that is to make one. And I know that's hard to say, right? But like, you can buy a $400 gun and start gunsmithing it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about is like, at least be able to do that. I've made a 1911 from a bare frame before. Okay. I've never made a black powder revolver, a cowboy revolver from a bare frame because the Italians make really, 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 really good copies for $400. And well, it's a good place to start. I would never spend all of the time and money to make my own black powder revolver as a result of the Italians doing what they do. It's sort of like, if a Russian made AK-47 was $6, why would you ever buy any of the other ones? That's how I feel about the Italian guns because if you know the story of the Italian black powder revolvers, like there was a dedicated group of people that liked shooting these guns and knew that the antiques were wearing out, and they smuggled fucking Colt revolvers into Italy illegally. Forget the guy's name. But those Italian gunsmiths took the Colt revolvers that were real deal black powder, and I think it was an 1851 Navy, an 1860 Colt, and like an 1873 Colt that eventually got smuggled in and copied. And everything else has kind of been an outgrowth of those. Anyway, that's why those Italian guns are so good. Okay, they went there and did that, and then the people that were buying the initial batches of guns were old timers that knew these guns the way like some of the YouTubers on here, besides myself, know them still because they're kind of leftovers from this same group of guys, I guess, in a way. But anyway, because they were so particular at the start about getting guns that were really Colts, basically, they do a damn good job. This Pieta I have has a couple of glaring issues. It's a 3-click gun and it has a funky grip on it. I don't really care about either one of those things. 3-click, 4-click. The difference in the clicks is the strength of a spring in there. Anyway, um, as a result of those guys being so particular, though, we get a very high grade of gun today. And they are not made to be shootable out of the box, I don't think. I think they know what they're doing. And I think they know basically that you should never fucking have a factory nipple on a gun. And they, as a result, put really, really kind of shitty factory nipples on all their guns to force you to buy real ones because they know that you're not going to spend the extra $100 that it would take them to fucking do whatever, right? I think that's why they do that. They make those nipples themselves, and they're really fucking cheap. And everyone in the industry does that now. And the ones they supply work. That's, I guess, not the issue, right? The issue is that they don't work well. They're undersized and they're not made correctly usually. So, in my experience, caps tend to fall off of them. And when your nipples aren't made right on a black powder revolver, they'll do shit like blow the caps off and have cap jams more. This is why I'm buying. I was going to buy Slick Shot nipples, but Slicks is out of business, I guess. So I bought some stainless nipples from Track of the Wolf. Should do me just as good. And like I said, I'm going to convert this to cartridge cases now, I guess, but I'm probably going to try to keep this to where I can convert it back to black powder. So I really did want that the ability to do that. And I think it's cool to have a gun that shoots cartridges that still has a ramrod on it. For no other reason than you could use it in field to sort of do some half-ass reloading. That would be an interesting experiment to see if you can use a black powder revolver converted to cartridges to reload its own cartridges. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to do the primer. I mean, about loading the bullet in, put the cases in it, and then load the powder, and then ram your balls home. I bet you that shit would work. Would be an interesting way to use this thing. Just carry around the shit to do the fucking swap on the percussion cap, or primer, really, on the 45 auto case, and then load it still like a muzzle loader. Would be the weirdest fucking gun. My end goal with this gun is whatever kit of stuff I'm going to have for this is going to have everything that you need in it to shoot this gun with black powder or black powder cartridges and reload and make your own projectiles for said gun. Um, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that, but that's the goal, and I want that because I want to have lead bullets in the box with this, but I also want to have silver bullets in the box with this, and that's the things I'd really like to have this. I'd like to have one of those wooden like fucking presentation cases or something, and I want to have this revolver with its silver bullets and like some wooden stakes and that kind of shit in it. That's where this is headed. I think is eventually this is going to have some like vampire shit with it. And at that point it becomes like a very high-end art piece kind of a thing. And I think that's what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to take these revolvers, and like this one's mine and I've done it for me. I'm going to buy another one of these and build a kit with it basically of some sort in a shadow box with break glass in case of vampires. And have, a revolver with silver bullets and stakes. And the cool part about this thing is I won't have percussion caps or powder in the case, obviously, because it would make it a pain in the ass to ship. But if you had a revolver and the silver bullets and stakes and whatever else you're going to include, the easy parts to get are the primers and the fucking powder. The hard part to get is the silver bullets and the revolver that's actually been tuned up to run. And that's kind of what I want to sell this as, is like, hey, it's kind of a kitschy thing, whatever, yeah, but at the same time, that revolver really works. I don't know how many of these I'm gonna do, but I definitely am going to make a few of these to sell. I like this revolver too much. I don't know if I'm gonna do the sight mod on all of them. I might. We'll see. I I might make them Colts, but part of me thinks Remingtons might be better. I am a fan of the Colt revolver, and it does have the added advantage of the show Supernatural had a gun that killed supernatural things that was a Colt revolver. And this is one of those know your market kind of things. If I'm making this for weirdos that like such things, probably a good idea to make it a Colt. Also, like that's the classic revolver. I think it would be really cool to do one of these revolvers up and have the silver bullets with it, and then have like I could make a set of prayer beads and a fucking set of stakes and some sort of a knife. Like you could have your little monster hunting kit kind of thing. I don't know what I'd sell that for. It would have to be. It would be a lot of money because the gun itself is fucking $400. Probably more than that now. Thanks inflation. That's half of why I got this Pieta. Was for $400. It has glaring issues. It had shit that I knew I was gonna have to fix. But I loved the engraving on it. I loved the length of the gun, and I didn't like the engraving on it with it in the white. I liked the look and pattern of the engraving and knew that it would look super cool if you had the gun blued. And that's, I guess, my thing with a lot of things when I buy a gun is I never buy a gun that I'm like, man, I love the way that is. I buy things that I'm like, I see what I can do with that. And some things are better than others. Like my 1911, I bought basically because it looked like a GI gun and it had modern sights. Like some things are just that simple, and others are like my car. I didn't even know I wanted that gun. I've always liked the metal framed cars because of the movie Shaft. Sam Jackson, his little backup gun in that movie that he carried for most of the movie was a car K9. This is the car MK9 that I have now, which is the subcompactor version of the K9. And the one I have is in black. And most of the car metal frame guns are in stainless. And it's a really early one. Like this is like the first or second year they ever made cars. So all of that, and it was cheap as fuck. It was $400. At that point, I love that gun because it's a gun that I like from a movie, but it's not the normal one. It's the compact black one, and it's cheap. That hits all my fucking criteria to buy a gun. And I'm not saying that's what you should have to buy a gun or whatever, but like when I try to make decisions on whether I'm going to spend my money on one gun over another anymore, that's more the stuff I think about. Like most guns will do what I need them to do. And that car might be a slight gamble because cars have a reputation for being iffy on reliability, but every car I've ever shot worked just fine for me. So that may be a personal preference thing. I don't know what else I want to talk about, so I'm probably just going to end this. It's been over an hour though. The, we had our ups and downs. We went to go shoot people outside. We talked about William Shatner and Star Wars. It's a good place to end it. Thanks for watching. I can find the end button.